The familiar comfort of my childhood street felt like a lie. I had driven straight here after clearing my desk, my stomach in knots. All I wanted was a quiet cup of tea and my mom's reassurance. I found her standing on the porch, arms crossed, a coldness in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "Mom," I started, my voice shaky. "I quit my job. The pressure, the toxicity. I just couldn't breathe." Her expression didn't soften. "People who quit are weak, Maya," she stated, her voice like ice. "And weak people aren't welcome in my home." The words hit me like a physical blow. She stepped back and closed the door. The lock clicked, a final, brutal sound. My suitcase was still in my trunk. As I turned, numb, I heard her voice through the door. "She'll come crawling back." A fire I didn't know I had ignited in my chest. I whispered into the quiet street, "We'll see." I didn't know where to go. I ended up in a grocery store parking lot, the steering wheel wet with my tears. How could she? My phone buzzed. It was Ben, a former coworker. "Maya, you were the glue," he said, his voice strained. "The whole department is imploding. They had no backup for your projects." He was confirming everything I already knew. But the call also revealed a harder truth. My mom hadn't been worried about my well-being. She only saw me as a trophy, a bragging right about her daughter, the high-powered executive. My success was a reflection of her. My failure was an embarrassment. A notification popped up on my screen. A job alert. Program Director, Statewide Community Foundation. It seemed different. I applied for the foundation job half-heartedly, expecting another corporate dead end. The interview, however, was nothing like I'd experienced. The executive director, a kind-eyed woman named Abigail, didn't grill me about profits. She asked about my leadership philosophy, how I handled stress, and what community meant to me. "Your resume is impressive, Maya," Abigail said, leaning forward. "But we're more interested in the person behind it. This role manages multi-million-dollar grants for development programs." It sounded meaningful. Then she added, almost casually, "There's a project in your hometown we've had our eye on." A chill went down my spine. My mom's pet project. The offer letter arrived a week later. The salary was generous, the benefits solid, but it was the mission that captivated me. The foundation was a respected, powerful force for good. On my first day, I felt a sense of purpose I'd been missing. I was reviewing a list of incoming grant applications when a familiar name made my heart stop. Hometown Community Revitalization Initiative. The lead coordinator was my mother, Evelyn Reed. Her dream project, the community center expansion she'd talked about for years, was asking for a massive grant. I opened the file with a sense of dread. The application was a disaster. It was incomplete, with entire sections left blank. The budget numbers were wildly inflated, and the supporting documents were sloppy, like they'd been thrown together at the last minute. It was clear she'd rushed it, expecting approval based on her name and the project's popularity alone. My new supervisor, Leo, peered over my shoulder. The Reed proposal. That one needs a strict review, Maya. The lead coordinator has a reputation for cutting corners. Let's see how you handle it." The weight of the file felt immense. I decided to observe a town council meeting to understand the project's public support. I sat in the back, hoping to go unnoticed. My mother, at the front table, saw me instantly. During a break, she marched over, her smile tight. "Maya. What are you doing here?" she whispered sharply. I kept my voice calm. "I work for the Statewide Community Foundation now. I'm reviewing grant applications." Her smile froze, then widened into something unnatural. "Well," she said, her voice sugary, "you'll make sure our grant gets approved, right? It would be such a help to your old town." The pressure started immediately. Phone calls. Emails. A good daughter would help her mother, she'd say. Or, "After all I'd done for you, this is the least you could do." The guilt was a heavy blanket. But as I stared at the flawed application, I realized the truth. Approving this grant wouldn't just be nepotism, it would be a betrayal. The community center would be built on a foundation of lies, doomed to fail and waste public hope and money. I couldn't do that. My moral line was drawn. I began a deep, by-the-book analysis of the application and its history. My analysis revealed troubling patterns. Past financial reports my mother had signed for smaller town projects showed inconsistencies. Numbers didn't add up. It was my legal duty to flag them. I submitted my concerns to our compliance department. An automatic internal audit was triggered. My phone rang seconds after the notification went out. "Are you sabotaging me?" my mother shrieked. I took a deep breath, my hand steady on my desk. "I'm just doing my job, Mom." Following the process. I could almost hear the town gossip starting, the whispers asking if Evelyn's own daughter had just exposed her. The community turned into a battlefield of whispers. My mother launched a campaign, painting me as a jealous, unstable daughter trying to ruin her successful mother's legacy. She played the victim perfectly. I refused to defend myself publicly. I knew the audit was underway, and the truth would be its own defense. I focused on my work, building a case based on facts, not feelings. Then Leo called me into his office. The auditors had hit a wall. They had requested additional receipts for past expenses, and my mother could not produce them. While reviewing old town archives for context, I found flashback documents that stung. News articles from years ago praising my mother for community initiatives I had actually spearheaded as a teenager. My volunteer work, my ideas, all credited to her. She had built her reputation on my youthful efforts. The current grant committee members, noticing the audit, began asking their own questions. Then, buried in an old digital file, I found it. An email from my mother to a former assistant, instructing her to forge a signature to rush a small grant 3 years ago. It was a smoking gun. I needed to be sure I was protected. I scheduled a meeting with HR and laid out the entire situation, the family connection, the pressure, the audit findings. The HR director was stern but supportive. "As long as you follow the established process to the letter, and document every interaction, no one, family or not, can accuse you of misconduct," she assured me. I felt a wave of relief. I was doing the right thing, the right way. I returned to my desk, resolved. Leo was waiting for me. "The foundation board has scheduled a site visit for the REIT proposal," he said. "And they're assigning you to lead it." The day of the site visit was a circus. My mother had arranged for a handful of borrowed volunteers to hammer pretend nails and push wheelbarrows filled with nothing. It was a staged photo op, and the board members saw right through it, their expressions unreadable. My mother, frantic, pulled me into a dusty storage closet. "You owe me," she yelled, her face contorted. I looked her directly in the eye, my voice steady. "I owe the community honesty. Not a flawed project that will fail." Her eyes narrowed into slits. "If this grant doesn't get approved, I'll make sure you regret it." The tension exploded at the next town hall meeting. The room was packed. During the open forum, my mother stood and pointed a trembling finger at me. "My own daughter, Maya Reed, is pursuing a personal vendetta against this town by blocking our grant," she declared. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I stayed seated, my posture composed. Then, an older resident, Mr. Gable, stood up. "With respect, Evelyn, we've wanted transparency on these projects for years." One by one, others voiced their agreement. The tide was turning. After the meeting, Leo handed me a thick envelope. The final audit report had arrived, sealed and confidential. I opened the audit report with Leo. Its conclusions were damning. It cited mismanaged funds from previous projects, inflated projections for the new center, a clear lack of compliance with basic procedures, and a significant amount of missing receipts. While it found no evidence of outright criminal activity, the grounds for denial were overwhelming. The project was too great a financial risk. My mother's professional credibility was shattered. Leo looked at me. The final decision needs to be announced at the public review session next week. The stage was set for the final act. The foundation's public review session was formal and tense. I stood before the town council and the community, my mother sitting in the front row. I presented the audit findings professionally, without a trace of personal emotion. I detailed the inconsistencies, the lack of documentation, the financial risks. I saw the moment it happened. The color drained from my mother's face as she realized there was no loophole, no dramatic appeal she could make. The foundation's decision was final. The grant was denied. A collective gasp filled the room. Then, my mother's eyes rolled back, and she slid from her chair in a dead faint. The fallout was immediate. My mother was revived, but she refused to speak to me or even look in my direction. The community board, embarrassed and angry, held an emergency meeting. They publicly pressured her to step down from her leadership roles temporarily. The woman who had ruled our town's social scene was now a pariah, isolated in her own home. I should have felt triumphant, but I only felt hollow. A few days later, my office phone rang. It was the office of a state senator. He had heard about the case and wanted to meet with me. The meeting with Senator Davis was surreal. He praised my integrity and my courage in upholding the foundation's standards under intense personal pressure. The public's trust is everything, he said. He then invited me to join a new statewide initiative focused on community improvement and ethical grant management. My professional star was rising, recognized for the very principles my mother had mocked. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. My mother's voice, strained and quiet, said, "Maya. We need to talk." I met her at a neutral cafe. Her apology was quick, almost robotic. "I'm sorry for how things turned out," she said, not meeting my eyes. Then her real motive surfaced. "The board is saying they'll remove me permanently if the project is completely dead. You need to get them to reevaluate the grant. This community center is my legacy." She still didn't get it. She saw the rules as flexible for her. "I can't manipulate the system, Mom. The decision is final." Her composure shattered. "You'd let your own mother fail? After everything?" The following week, at the local grocery store, she confronted me again. This time, it was public and ugly. "You think you're so high and mighty now," she yelled, drawing stares from other shoppers. "You're a spiteful, ungrateful child." I stood silently, letting her words fall away. A woman I didn't know recorded the outburst on her phone. Later, she approached me in the parking lot. "I'm not going to post this," she said softly. "But you should have it. As evidence." The recording of my mother's meltdown found its way to the town board members. The town board called a private hearing to decide my mother's future on the community board. I was invited to attend as a procedural witness. My mother, dressed in her best suit, tried a new story. "This is all because I kicked her out when she was failing," she told the board, tears in her eyes. "She's punishing me." But the board had seen the audit. They had heard the recording. They had months of evidence. The board chair, a stern woman named Patricia, turned to me. "Ms. Reed, do you wish to submit a statement for the record?" I stood and faced the board, my heart pounding but my voice clear. "This was never about revenge," I began. "It was always about serving the community with the integrity it deserves. I loved this town enough to protect it from a bad investment, even when it cost me personally. I spoke about the importance of trust and the danger of taking shortcuts." When I finished, there was a profound silence in the room. The suspicion in the board members' eyes had been replaced by a deep, respectful understanding. The board voted unanimously. My mother was removed as head of the Community Development Committee permanently. It was a decisive end to her reign. I watched her shoulders slump in defeat. Instead of feeling triumph, a wave of sadness washed over me. This was a closure I hadn't wanted, the end of a relationship that had been broken long before I quit my job. Later that night, my phone lit up. It was her. Again. I almost didn't listen, but I pressed play. The message was different this time. It wasn't anger. It was a broken plea. Maya, her voice was thick with tears, stripped of all its usual pride. I built my entire life, my whole identity, on being the successful one, the one who got things done. Losing that grant, it destroyed the image I'd spent decades crafting. Everyone sees me as a failure now. She took a shaky breath. I know I was wrong. But is there any way, any at all, you can help me save face? I have nothing left. The raw honesty was disarming. For the first time, she wasn't demanding, she was asking. I met her one last time. I can't save your reputation, I told her gently but firmly. But you can rebuild it. I laid out a redemption offer. I had spent days connecting with legitimate nonprofits and ethical consultants. I gave her their contact information. They could help her restart the community center project the right way, with a realistic plan, a transparent budget, and proper community input. But there are conditions, I said. No shortcuts. No lies. No bullying. You have to earn the trust back, one honest step at a time. She looked at the information, her hands trembling. The easy way out was gone. Would she take the hard path, or would she walk away from it all? Months later, I received an invitation. The hometown community center, now under new leadership but with my mother as a humble volunteer, had secured a small, properly submitted grant through a different program. It was based purely on merit. I attended the small groundbreaking ceremony, standing quietly in the back. My mother saw me. She walked over, her head not held high in pride, but slightly bowed. Thank you, she whispered, and for the first time it felt real. I walked away with my dignity, having won not by destroying her, but by forcing honesty into a place that desperately needed it. The following Monday, Abigail called me into her office. The senator had recommended me for a promotion, citing my unwavering integrity. It was a full-circle victory, a symbolic reward for choosing the right path. I had finally found my worth.